So in lieu of all the changes that Microsoft has made to the Xbox One, I decided it would be a very good idea to go ahead and put out this video that will not only just cover all the changes they've made, but also put out my predictions as to what the changes that they're going to make again will be. And I say that because I have a very strong feeling that they're not done changing the Xbox One. Because there are a couple things that I feel like they're going to have to address before they're officially ready to just put out the console.
There's uniforms skulking
But yeah,
around,
about
too.
right
Watch
now
each
I'm
other's
gonna
backs.
put up a picture that came out. I don't remember who made it. I found it somewhere. But basically, it's like a picture that came out right after E3. That's all the things you cannot do with the Xbox One. And if you look closely at all the bullets, you'll see that all these things are actually things that you can do now. So the first bullet says you can't play games unless you connect every 24 hours, because that was a big thing at that point. The whole DRM idea and all those things where it's like if you can't connect every 24 hours, you can't play a single player game anymore. So there's no bringing it with you to do stuff, or if your internet goes out, you're basically screwed type of thing. And they managed to change that, even though it's one of those things where they said it would be almost impossible to do when interview with Major Nelson type of thing happened. And he was so sure that it just couldn't be done. And then I think a couple days after that interview ran, it was done, like magic. And then you have the next one that says disconnect the Kinect sensor, which as of a couple days or weeks ago, I believe, maybe even last week, was basically said in an interview that, oh yeah, you can disconnect the Kinect sensor, that's okay. You don't have to have it plugged in all the time, which is something they originally said couldn't happen. And nobody really addressed that quote-unquote change in regards to how it was done. It was basically just like, oh yeah, you can do that, that's okay. Then you have the next two bullets, lend and rent games, which again ties into the used game thing, which is also one of the original problems that people had. Where, okay, if I have these games, they're basically not my games. Instead of buying the games, it's like I'm buying a license to these games, where you're just allowing me to use it. They're not mine anymore. So of course they got rid of that once they saw that people didn't like that, / that people were buying the PlayStation 4 instead of their console. So the next one, trade games freely, which once again ties into that, which is the idea of actually, yeah, everything under disconnect connect sensor basically is what I'm trying to say. Because this was a very big point after their conference, is that people didn't like the idea of not owning their games. Because for console people, it's a very big thing where if you go to a store and you buy this disc, you feel like you own this disc. Because on PC, most of the time you don't own your games. You're getting little keys that you input onto Steam or Origin or what have you. They give the game to you. And if you think about it like that, then you don't really own a game. You don't own the copies of the game. It's basically like you got a code and now this game is added to your library, but you don't physically own a game. And basically doing that change cold turkey to console people just kind of like scared the crap out of them, because at least in PC games, it was originally they had the disc, and then Steam came along, and over the course of years that took its place. But Microsoft was trying to make it take its place instantaneously. It's like, with this next generation of consoles, all your games are basically going to be like we're renting them out to you. And of course, console people didn't like that, because I mean, why would you want this to suddenly change and just be like, I know you owned all these games on your previous console, but now you don't really own them anymore, and now we're just kind of letting you have them for like $60. Is that okay? It's not? Oh shit. We'll go ahead and change that too. Maybe that'll make you buy our console again. And they've actually, and I'll admit it, they've done a very good job in regards to backpedaling enough to make the console seem valuable to people. But the last thing that still stands that they haven't changed is that $500 price point. Because when you look at it, the Xbox One is still $500, whereas the PlayStation 4 is still $400. Or if you want to look at it and add the two online services respectively, then the Xbox One is now $550 and the PlayStation 4 is $450. But that $100 difference still stands, which is why I'm predicting that in the next 3 months or so, when the console would supposedly launch, there are basically 3 changes that they're going to make. Because I highly doubt, and I'll go on record saying this, I could very well be wrong, but I highly doubt that they're going to keep it at $500, because they've drastically changed so many things that they've said before aren't possible to be changed, that this price point doesn't need to be static. Because at this point, it's not even that they're trying to maximize profits, it's that they're trying to sell a console. Because so many people were put off by what they've done that they're doing whatever they can to sell it. So these three things, the three options basically as to what they could do are as follows. One, they could go and release a different version of the console, one that doesn't come with Kinect. So instead of having Kinect, you just get the console and the controllers and all that basic stuff, and it's only $400. Because the Kinect is basically more or less said to be $100 additional type of thing. So like people say the Kinect is the reason why it can't be a $400 console, because this is also this is a supposed thing that was heard around E3 that Sony at the last second, quote unquote, got rid of the PlayStation camera, like PlayStation Eye type of device, to make sure their console was cheaper than the Xbox One, which is, it's not that they removed something, but in years past, in what I believe was actually the first E3, Sony severely undercut one of the other companies, and that was like the rising point of the original PlayStation, because they were $100 cheaper, and that's basically all they had to say, is that like they set the price point, and that was the main thing of the conference. It's just like, we're a cheaper console, and it worked for them then, and the odds are it will work for them now. And the odds are Microsoft also knows that. So in the next months, it wouldn't make sense for them to go and keep it at a higher price, because history has a tendency to repeat itself. And if being cheaper worked for them so much then, it'll probably work for them now. And if you look at the last generation, costing more than the original Xbox didn't work for them then, because when the PlayStation 4 was like $600 at the starting point, you saw how poor it did. So they learned from that mistake and make sure to make their consoles cheaper, because it's basically where the cheaper console will win. Because why would you want to spend more money for two things that basically just look like boxes essentially? Because even if you're looking at them and you know everything they do, at the end of the day, they're both consoles, and one of them is cheaper than the other. And obviously, the logical thing is to buy the cheaper one. So, like I said, the first thing is they're going to remove the Kinect and just make a $400 thing that includes just the console, the controllers, all that stuff, and not the Kinect. Or two, they're going to reduce the entire price of the thing and make it $400, which is probably less likely than the first option, because then they'd really be selling at a loss. Because the reason that they're trying to bundle the Kinect now is to go and get developers to support it. So they'd probably give up developer support before they would give up losing that much money, because they'd be selling Kinects when they know people won't want them, and it's just additional lost money. And even though it could very well be done, it wouldn't make as much sense as a business point as I see it, because they could still have the idea of people buying Kinects in the future and have it, like they could have the $400 Xbox, like my first idea, and then sell the Kinect for slightly cheaper later on, and still have people adopt the Kinect, where they're not losing as much money, but developers will still have a reason to support it. And then my third option, which could very well, I feel like this third option and the first option are the most logical ones. And the third option is they'll bundle a game with the Xbox One, where it's, people will see, they'll go out to buy it and they'll see that, oh hey, this comes with the game. And if it's like a $60 game, like we'll say like they have bundles now, like bundles that cost additional amounts of money. But if they sold a bundle that was a game made by Microsoft Studios, because that way they could do it, because it'd be in the whole development house type of thing. If they sold a bundle that way and kept the price at $500, it would no longer be a $100 difference between the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but it would be a $40 difference between the two consoles. And when you look at a console and you see a $40 difference versus a $100 difference, and that one console that may cost more comes with the game, that's going to attract to most people, especially parents, when you get to the whole Christmas time type of thing, because anybody who's had to have their parents buy them something, it's basically like they'll get you the console and they'll get you one game, and that game is supposed to last you until the next generation of consoles comes out. So if they bundled the game and kept the price down, that $40 basically becomes like non-existent, and that difference is basically, hey, this console comes with the game. The price just disappears and it becomes, this console comes with the game. That way I don't have to buy them another game. And that way they can still continue to keep Kinect for developer support. They can keep the price at $500. And they don't really lose much by putting out a game that they made, or that they were the production house of, because Microsoft Studios actually does make games. So the question is, it could, at anything, it could probably be Dead Rising if that game came out this year, and I actually don't know if it's a launch title or not. But if, say, they put out Dead Rising to go along with the, like, as a bundle for the just generic console. So it wasn't a bundle that cost more, but it was just, it comes with the console basically. So you have everything that they already have plus a game, and that would basically be all they need to do to attract everybody. Because as it stands, like I said, that $100 difference is enough to go and get everybody off. But as soon as you go and make that difference shorter and add an incentive, add a free game that just came out that has like brand recognition, because Dead Rising has been something that's been around. The first Dead Rising, I think, was a launch title for the Xbox 360. So as soon as you add that, one thing, that's going to be enough to sell that console and get rid of the little difference between the two. And I think that's why, because Adam Sessler is one of the many people who said this, but basically, like, after E3, it's like, it isn't over yet. It isn't decided which one will win, because if Microsoft employs any three of those ideas, that'll be about all they need to do to mediate everything and get their console bought. Because at this point, it's basically like, who can, within the final 3 months or so until the console is released, who can make their thing appear more appealing. Because originally it was a PlayStation 4 by a landslide, and because of all those pre-orders, they probably still have a lead. But with the way that Microsoft is doing things, they're doing everything they can to catch up, and they're doing a pretty good job at this point.